when you come through the Depression, you got a different outlook on life and everything. Tell you about the things boys do. This is down the farm. Over south, and the day was about like this. It was about 75 yards, at least 75 yards. Well, down there was our property line, a web wire fence and 2 barbed wires. So, okay, we got this bright idea. We made a 8-foot sled. We took 2x8s and put boards in them, and we made a guide system up front. We wouldn't cut these old black elm. They're tough, and we made 8-inch wheels about like this, and we attached them to this guide. And we had 2 stakes in the back, sitting back there for brakes. And we doing that. By the time we got down there, we got it, and we'd go out through here. Well, one day everything went south. The guide system broke. And that broke both paddle, broke both wood off of the 2x8s. Went right down there and run into that web wire fence, skinned us up, tore our clothes up. And that was the last time we done that.
Now, you went back home to Mom and Dad. What did you tell them?
Oh, yeah, and we already knew that we wasn't going to do that no more. Oh, getting back to that, telling about Grandma. Chicken feed would come in 50-pound cotton-flared sacks. My mom had a sewing machine, sewing machine. She'd make the girls' dresses and the boys' shirts. I never had a store-bought shirt till I was grown. She made them out of them flared feed sacks. I told some people that, and they look at me like, I wonder if he knows what he's talking about. Yeah, I know what I'm talking about. You had to work. It was hard time, boy. I'd go clear back till I was about 3 years old. See, Mom and Dad lived about 2 miles south of Pontiac. Mom and Dad took us and went down to the river. And Dad had a minnow seine. Seeing him and Mom was out there seeing them minnows catch fish. You just go down there and catch fish because there was lots of fish. Mom put down a pallet on the gravel bar for me and Art. And they was out there seeing the minnows. Mom looked back, and I'm out here in the water swimming. Boy, she got all excited, and Dad said, well, look, he's swimming. So I tell everybody I was born and raised swimming. I put Art and Gerald and Jim in the creek over there. The water was about 8 feet deep on the ledge. And I said, you guys can't swim. I just pushed them in the water. You'll learn how to swim now. So I guess I was born to swimming. I just go swimming. One time, the 4 of us got the idea, we really got brave. We went over southeast on the creek, pretty good hole of water. We took along the axe and built us up a big fire. This is cold in January. Put off our clothes and went down there and jumped in the creek. They could swim, went back up there and put our clothes on. We've done that several times. And boy, I tell you, you'd get lively. And Mom would say, you boys gonna have to stop doing that, you're gonna get sick. But we never did bother us. I remember when it was, we all got the chicken pox. But we wasn't all sick at the same time. It'd be 2 or 3 of us, and the others didn't get it. The Art, him and Gerald took after Wilbankses. Me and Jim and Fred and took after Barners. And Elsie and Laverne and Murray and Danny. Carolyn, she more or less kind of went back to the Wilbanks side. I spent 2 years on Guam in the Navy. I was a gunner's mate, and I was a small arms instructor. I had the Commander Mariana's Armory on Guam. In late '49, we already knew about Korea. We already started building up. I had to qualify all enlisted personnel and shooting small arms. And then we go down to Marine barracks and to shoot qualifications to go in the record because the range that we had didn't come up to that standard, and they have to take men down there and shoot. I'd have about 15 to 20 students at a time. We'd shoot 3 days a week, in which I shot a lot. And my buddy, third class personnel man in the headquarters, he called me up one day after Christmas. He said, Marty, you get your gear packed. He said, they're going to fly us back. I said, yeah. He said, yeah. And he said, oh, he said, you don't have 75 pounds of weight. I had to guess at that. We didn't have no scale to weigh 75 pounds. So we guessed at it. Well, they took us out to Gagne Airport in the DC-4, and we flew from Gagne Airport in Guam, and had to make a stop at Johnston Island. And boy, this was a little bitty dot down there. There was about 15 of us. We all had a Mae West. That's a vest that'll keep you above water from here up. I looked down there and I thought, we're gonna stop on that little, well, the tires on the plane splashed the water when we sat down and turned around in the water down there. We were there about 15 minutes. And then we flew into Hickam and Pearl and went through customs and stuff. And a chartered airline and an ex-Flying Tiger pilot. And we left Hawaii and hit a bad storm, boy, I mean bad. They said at one time the plane dropped 600 feet. And the pilot come on the air and he said, folks, I'm sorry to tell you, but he said, we've got to return to Hickam Field. We do not have enough fuel to reach any airport in the United States. Oh boy. I think we landed on fumes in that plane. So we landed at an airport up north of San Francisco, I think is Santa Rosa. Now mind you, we had left Guam and the temperature up high, you know. Well, we got to Hawaii, we changed into blues. When we got out of the plane up there, and we got a taxi and went down to the main receiving station. And this was about 5:30 in the evening. So went into the headquarters and coming down the aisle was Lieutenant J.G. So we stopped him and he looked at the order and he said, he looked all around and with nobody but the three of us there and he said, do you mean to get paid? We said, no. He said, get out of here. He said, I haven't seen you. He said, if you stay here, you'll be here for a week. Well, we had 20 days delayed en route before we had to report down to San Diego, the duty on the destroyer. We went downtown. We decided, well, Ben's, we've got time enough. We went about 3 or 4 blocks to a real good restaurant, had a big steak and everything, and went to a movie. And crossed Oakland Bay Bridge to the airport, and we flew nonstop from Oakland to Kansas City. Cold, 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 cold. Man. Well, I got out of the Navy in September of '51 in San Diego, California, and I come home.
Another day, another dollar.
Well, I had chauffeur's license from the Navy. So I went out to the plant. I went in there and I told them who it was. Before I hardly got started talking, they had me hired for maintenance department. And I was the 7th person hired at Lilly. And went to work, busy. It was going to be about 6 months before this one department would be ready for operation and needed maintenance people to repair production machinery. Well, I made the mistake of I could operate a fork truck. I went out in the warehouse and I drove a fork truck and bring supply and stuff into the plant. I turned that over and went into maintenance and working on production machinery. Work. Martha Jean, 6-foot-tall redhead, real nice. She was a Christian girl when she was about 15. And she was born and raised in Okmulgee, Oklahoma. And her dad was a iron worker. Take a guess who Martha Jean's neighborhood boyfriend was. And Dipsy Floyd, Pretty Boy Floyd's son. They lived across and down the street, and they grew up, and I told some people this, and they, you mean your wife grew up with an outlaw? And we'd get a big kick out of it. Okay. She was a better mom to John and then Doris. They were buddies. When we started teaching Sunday school, see, we was on the staff. When the church doors opened, we was there. We was busy, working 5 and 6 days a week, going to church on Wednesday night, Sunday morning, and Sunday night. Worked at Lily. Work. Monday morning, get up at 3 and go to work at 4. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and Saturday, get up at 2 and go to work at 3. Working on the machine. I worked putting the money in the new house. In '67, Zenith Television Corporation made the decision to move their manufacturing facilities to Springfield, Missouri. And they bought 70 acres out on East Kearney and built a $10 million building. And I went to work there in early '67 as a Class A skilled maintenance mechanic. And the full operation, there was 4,400 hourly paid employees. They had decided to manufacture their own plastic cabinets. So they went out in the southeast warehouse and built a new room and installed these big hydraulic operated mold machines. And I'm pretty sure the 21-inch was the largest plastic cabinet they made. The Class A skilled maintenance mechanic had to do mechanical, electrical, and the plumbing. And if the electrician was installing electric equipment, when he got through, he turned it over to us as our responsibilities. And there was a lot of changes made, and at the same time, there was a lot of work had to be done. There was trouble. And I spent the biggest part of my time for several years going out and repairing stuff, and then I became a machinist. And I was the only machinist in the maintenance department and had to make shafts and parts for equipment out in the plant. These slat lines they had were slats. The line was about this wide, and the wood slats was made, and they'd go up and come back down and pick up another set, see? And that TV set was going down that line, and that employee had a certain amount of space to do their job. And if they didn't get it done, they'd have to get the set off of the line and put it on a dolly and set it aside, and later have to finish it up. Here's a big air conditioning job on the roof. Big drive motor started going bad, and maintenance would get a call. Well, you know where burners are going. You had a short amount of time to change that motor out, because it didn't. All the computer stuff and the payroll would shut down, go bad.
Yeah.
You had 2 or 3 guys had to pull that motor, big motor about like this, had to pull that motor up the ladder to get it up on the roof. And then things like that.
Yeah.
The supervisor of this cutter school, he was from Chicago, and he was Italian. Nobody else could understand him and work for him. If something come up and there was a question about it, I got the call. I went up there, he met me at the door, and he started all night. He said, now, I'll tell you what you do. I come up here to help you. If you want me to solve your problem, you're going to have to slow down, so when you talk, I can understand. Well, we ended up struck a compromise, and I was the only guy to go up there and solve his problem for him. I forgot about the main power line inside the plant shorting out and blowing up. It blew a hole through the roof. And Wilbur and I got in there with a new splicing part and got up there, unbolted all of this, and took all that apart. And this was a really trying deal, because all that electricity out there in the plant was coming back. We had big thick rubber gloves on, and that didn't help. Everybody was concerned, the plant manager and the personnel manager and all the big boys was down there standing around and watching. And you couldn't make no miscue, because I don't know how many volts was like this from you. And Wilbur was over on one side and I was on the other. So we got it done, got the cover back on it, and they turned it back on, everything was all right. And then that was a trying moment. Now getting back to the big snow we had, plant was down. Nobody was working. The phone rang, and he said, Bill, the roof and the boiler room are about ready to cave in. Oh, I couldn't have that, because, boy, that would really mess things up. So I had to fight this big snow to get out to the plant. And I'd get up in the box up there and spot weld the I-beam to the beams for support the roof. Well, we got that done. Them was trying things. I retired January 1 of '86 after 19 years.
So, do you remember what you made as a salary back when you first started? How many dollars?
I don't remember what it was, but when we quit it was $10 an hour. When we joined the IBE Never Electric Union, we got a pretty good raise in pay. We were still, in a sense of speaking, underpaid.
Gone fishing instead of just wishing.
Well, Martha Jean, she got the fishing beaver bad. I got her rigged up and she's over there in the fishing. I was over here and she said, honey, I'm hung up. And I said, what do you mean you're hung up? She said, I'm hung up. Well, when she handed me the rig, she caught a big largemouth bass. Well, she couldn't keep a largemouth bass. Boy, she about pushed me in the creek. I said, honey, you can't keep that. She said, why do you mean I can't? I said, if that conservation area, we call them game wardens, down there at the road was about 250 yards at the bridge. I said, you'll get a $250 fine plus about $125 court cost. Well, on a Monday morning, some of the girls that she worked with, she said, did you catch any fish? She said, yeah, but guess what? Old Honest John there wouldn't let me keep my big bass, I called her, who had to throw it back. And the more she got the fishing beaver bad. And then she got where she didn't want to go fishing, and her health got bad. When she passed away on a Wednesday morning, 23rd of May of '99, and we got through having breakfast about 8:30, and she said, what are you going to do? And I said, I've got some 44 mag ammo to load, hunting ammo for a customer. I come back in about 10 minutes to 10, and she was coughing. And I thought, Martha Jean, don't cough. So I went in the bedroom. She's sitting on the edge of the bed, coughing. She said, I'm hurting bad. So I just went there and called the ambulance. In 7 minutes, they backed the ambulance up in the driveway, and the two top surgeons at St. John's spent 6.5 hours serious complicated surgery. The main artery coming out of her heart was ruptured. That's what all the pain was about. And 3 different times they took her off the equipment. She was gone. Like that. But Martha Jean and I was busy and stuff, and then busy. But time went by fast.
On September 5th, 2024, Bill Barner celebrated his 100th birthday at his home with his 3 sisters, family, and friends. Bill Barner is the first member from the family line of his father, Sam Barner, and the family line of his mother, Ida Mae Wilbanks, to become a centenarian, 100 years old. Congratulations, Bill.
How you doing?
Good to see you. Thank you. I think it's good.
Happy birthday, buddy.
Remember, Mom was taking them big sweet potatoes, sliced sweet potatoes, and she had a mixture, and she went in, fry them in the big skillet.